welcome back to NCOT and welcome back to another industry interview.
Today we have Annie Simeone Morales, and she was the production designer and art director on It Ends With Us.
And he gave us a lot of good information on the behind the scenes of It Ends With Us, even to the point of knowing that it wasn't filmed in Boston despite it taking place in Boston throughout the entire movie.
You would have thought, right? Even more interesting was learning just how the strike really affected these feature film productions.
And obviously, we got to hear everything about the art direction and production design of this movie.
So without further ado, here is Annie Simeone Morales.
Hi, guys.
I am Annie Simeone Morales, and I am a production designer and an art director. I live and work in New York City. Well, I work all over, but I live in New York City. And I kind of fell into the film industry. I think everybody has a really fun, interesting story about how they ended up in film, especially in the art department, because a lot of us didn't go to film school. So I was a sculpture major, and I come from like kind of a more classic art production background. I made a lot of ceramic sculpture in school, and did metal work and glass and wood and all kinds of different materials. But that gave me a really good understanding of materials and process. And then after school, I started working as a fabricator at a prop shop. And that was kind of how I learned about set. And yeah, I kind of fell into it that way, and found the art department and have loved being a part of the art department ever since. I started as an art PA, driving trucks and set dressing, and I did props for a while in the indie world, and I used to be a scenic painter.
Mm-hmm.
Once I designed my first few films with friends, I kind of got the bug for having all the creative control, and working so closely with DPs and directors is really what I thrive on. And that's a lot of my friends in the industry through the years have been the DPs and the directors and producers, and just kind of all making these projects together and from the small world. And then now I do bigger and bigger projects. I still really value those collaborations. So I don't know, did that help anything?
Yeah. It is very fascinating to find all the different ways people join art department, whether they actually did art in college or if they just sort of stumbled into it. So it's very fascinating. I do want to ask, for the audience sake, because even I didn't really know the difference, but what is the difference between a production designer and an art director, and how do they function differently on the set?
Sure. Well, I think they mean different. Art director can mean so many different things in so many different industries. And I find even when I do commercials or print work, art director means a very different thing. So in the film world, the production designer is the head of the art department. We're the ones hired alongside the DP and director, and we are making kind of the big creative decisions about the look and the feel of the movie, color palette, color story, and any kind of big creative decisions that happen early are driven by myself and the DP and the director. And then I hire my department, and the first two people I hire are always an art director and a set decorator, because those are the other two branches of the art department. And then a prop master is third. Props is part of the art department, but they kind of run their own journey. But the production designer brings all of those people on, and that's the team we assemble. And then from there, they crew up around them. So the big distinction between art director and set decorator, because those are kind of the two branches, is that the set decorator is in charge of all of the decorations. They procure all of the details, all of the furniture, all of the small little things, except for what the actors touch, because those are the props.
Yeah.
And the art director runs the graphics world. They run the construction and the scenic departments. They also set the budget for the art department. So it's a lot of logistics. They also keep the art calendar. They run They run all the work lists so that this even the set deck team can come to the art director and be like, what's the plan? What are we doing? It's kind of like a logistics manager for the art department, is I think the most boring way to describe it. But I like doing both jobs. They're very different. A good art director is you're overseeing the assistant art directors, who are the one, you call them set designers in LA, but they're the ones who are actually drafting the sets, and then construction and scenic that's building the sets. All of that is funneled strictly through the art director. And so you're really in charge of keeping the department running smoothly.
Kind of reminds me of a producer role.
Yeah.
It is. They are actually, that's a really good observation. They are the producer of the art department, I would say, because even down to things where it's like, oh, we want, designer, DP, director, we want to do this stuff. The art director has to be like, well, we're not currently budgeted for that, so I'm going to have to go to the producers and ask for more money. So, all the kind of minutia they're in charge of kind of everything. It's not as creative per se. The creative thinking is more logistical creative thinking, but I like to use both sides of my brain, so I like to do both jobs.
Very interesting that you got into art direction as well because of your background in being so handy and so hands-on with the work. And
Yeah.
so is there one that you prefer over the other?
Yeah, I definitely prefer to design. I always have been a designer. I started art directing because in the indie world, as we were coming up, when the jobs are smaller, really you're your own art director most of the time, because the jobs don't have enough money to have a full positioned art department. And so you're doing so much of the work yourself. I started to really notice the things that I needed. Like I know when I'm designing the support that I need from an art director. So I think it made me a good art director, because then I could kind of fill those gaps that because I'm like, this is what I would want things to go. This is how I would want things to go if I was designing this movie. Really just kind of got was a good way for me to make new connections and meet new people. And I like working on the bigger projects. When I art direct, I get to do much bigger projects because I design primarily tier features usually. So just the structure of an art department as the jobs get bigger and bigger is really awesome to see, and I love to be a part of that. So I really do like doing both, but I definitely prefer to design. It's more creative in a way that I need.
I noticed on IMDb, when you look at kind of who worked on It Ends With Us specifically, that there was multiple art directors. Did you was that in order to divvy up the work, or was it because of the size of the project they needed to work with more people?
So It Ends With Us is actually a strange one. So first, it is common to have multiple art directors on a big job where you're doing a lot of big sets and there's a lot to oversee. On It Ends With Us, that was not the case. The thing that happened with It Ends With Us is the original designer, Russell, who's an old friend of mine, he designed a movie that I art directed like 10 years ago, back before we were both in the union in our indie days. So it was a fun thing to come back together on. So he designed the first half of the movie before the strikes, and I was the art director. And then we got shut down because of the strikes for like 5-6 months, but we were only halfway done with the movie. And when the movie came back, as the strikes ended, Russell wasn't available to come back on. He was on another project. And so they moved me up to designer, and I hired a new art director to work underneath me for the second half of the film. So we have a double credit on IMDb for being production designer, because he did the first half and I did the second half. And then there's a double art director credit. And that's, I think a lot of films that happened during the strike are going to have a lot of weird billings like that, because I think everybody had the same problem.
How was it kind of leveling up in that way? What was it challenging to kind of take over, or did he kind of leave it so that it was easy to blend into the role?
It was fine for us and for me, because I think it would have been really hard if I hadn't done the first half of the film. I think it made it seamless for everyone. But we had a huge set that Russell designed and we completely built and we installed in a location. and we never got to shoot. Sorry, the sun is like blazing into right now. It's not a great Zoom location. But we had to strike the whole set, take it down completely, never got to shoot it. And so then when we came back, we were able to take all of that work and build it back up. But I didn't design that. Russell designed it. We just put it back together again. So I was able to oversee it because I had been a part of it the first time. The tricky stuff happened when they ended up reshooting some scenes that we'd shot from before. So we had to redesign and reconceive them. And then a bunch of the exterior work wasn't done yet. And that was really sad because we had saved a lot of our beautiful exteriors to be done in the summertime.
Yeah.
And of course, then we shut down and we were shooting again in January, and everything was brown and ugly. And so it was just trying to make things look beautiful and lovely. And like you saw the movie. The farmer's market scene at the very end of the movie, that's springtime, that was the dead of winter. There was snow on the ground. There was not a single leaf on a tree. The greens department did a beautiful job bringing that all together. And we brought in all of those farmer's market stalls that we made for the film. So that was a challenge, and all the exteriors we had to do in the middle of the winter. But no, it was pretty seamless. It was really a fine transition. And Russell did the two biggest iconic sets of the film. He did Lily Bloom's flower shop, which was amazing. And that was because that set piece was it was an empty white space, and we had to turn it into the dusty old cafe that you see she finds, and it's full of stuff. And then she transforms it on camera, and then it had to become Lily Bloom's flower shop. So we were in that location for over a month. And it was honestly like a very tricky art direction piece as well, because there were so many layers to the work that had to be done, and it's tiny space, and a lot of different departments all had so much work to do in there. We actually built a grid into the ceiling so it could treat it like a mini stage, because the way they needed to light it, because you saw the whole room, you couldn't put light stands anywhere. So it was very cool. A feat on all accounts.
Especially because a lot of the movie storytelling goes through how time passes, and you kind of see the time passing because of the pregnancies. But other than that, you don't really see a lot. But with the shop, you have to kind of like stick to those time passage moments. So it's really incredible that, I mean, many people don't realize this, but when you have a location, you try to shoot that location throughout, not in a time sequence. So was it difficult just trying to keep that time and that momentum, even with the strike when that happened?
Yeah, we did all of the flower shop before the strike, so we got all of that done. But there were a lot of details that we put into the passage of time that didn't actually make it on camera, which is too bad. But we had detailed charts for, okay, today on set, we're shooting and it's the fall. So we'd change the flower arrangements out for like fall flower arrangements. And, we'd put some like branches with leaves out of the windows, and you didn't catch a lot of it, but we did all of that work to really help you feel the passage. It's like, okay, there's a Valentine's thing here now because we're in like early February, and that we had massive time charts for every set and every sequence. So we do pay a lot of attention to that in the art department, and we do it. And if they don't catch it on camera, then what can we do? But we try.
Right. I was actually gonna we always ask production designers and art directors kind of what it was like to work with the directors on set, but I think this film was unique because you not only had the director, you also had an author who, as far as I've heard, has had quite a lot of input in the story and how it was transferred onto screen. So I'm just curious, like, your perspective. I know you weren't in the initial talks as the film was starting to get off the ground in pre-production, but I'm curious kind of what your perspective was trying to balance the wants of both the director and the author.
Well, she was super involved, and she was around a lot. Actually, she would come by the art office and look at what we were doing, and she was very lovely. And she and the director got along great. Like the director was just everything he cared about was trying to stay true to not just the delicate subject matter of the book, but also to stay true to the fans who the book meant so much to. And it really did have this fan base that I like, you know, didn't understand or conceive at all until I was really in it. And then he wanted to reach out to the fans for everything. He tried to find an Instagram florist who was inspired by the book. We ended up having to use a film florist for many reasons, but he really did want everything to be for the fans and true to the book as possible. And he and Colleen worked together closely to keep it in a place that she liked. And I think she was really happy with the final results as well. He was great to work with. He was a really nice guy, and everything he did was in service of trying to keep the movie true to its vision.
And what were there any different dynamics having a director that is also one of the main protagonists of the movie?
Yeah, it's always hard. I've done a few projects where the director has been the actor. I did it with Ray Romano did it. I did a movie of his called Somewhere in Queens that is excellent. But it's a hard thing to do, no matter who you are and how good you are at it, because you have to just kind of switch those hats. You know, it's not my favorite thing to do. I'm sure it's not their favorite thing to do either, because it must be, I can't imagine having to do both of those things at once. I don't think the movies, either of them suffered for it, but I do think that I think it's good to have a separation in the roles in general. It's like when you have somebody who's like a director who's funding a movie themselves. It's never as good. The beauty of film is that it takes a village to make it happen, and you can't do it all yourself. And it's better when you try to spread it out and have everyone do what they do best. But yeah, I mean, Justin did a good job of it. It never really was a problem. It's hard no matter who you are.
Sure.
Right. I'm also curious, what I found impactful from both the book, because I read the book way before the movie came out, but I also really liked Atlas's restaurant. So I'm curious, like, how much involvement you had on the creation of that and what that process is like, making his restaurant.
I did the exterior and Russell did the interior. The interior was beautiful. We actually built a big portion of that restaurant inside. So I don't know if you remember the bathroom where they were always going in and out of. We built that bathroom. So there was no bathroom there. There was no walls. It was a really big open bar in Jersey City where we shot it. And we built all of that area, all those walls for them to be, because we had to build them also for the stunts where we had to throw, you know, he throws them up against the wall of plates. They get in a fight, the plates shatter. So we had to have control over all of those walls. So it worked really well to build them and have that be a thing. We shot all that before the strike. And then we came back and shot all the exteriors when it was freezing cold out after the strike, of course. But his restaurant, I think, was really beautiful. He just really, that was a lot of the director's input as well, and Russell obviously, but they really wanted it to feel like this, like a place you really feel at home, and a place where Lily would really feel at home. Yeah. So I think that all of the beautiful like wallpaper patterns and textures and interesting lighting and kind of like found elements really complement Lily's aesthetic really nicely, and I think also helped you feel how well they fit together, as opposed to Ryle's kind of like sleek, more corporate, more you know, his aesthetic is just so different than hers. She feels like a fish out of water in his apartment, and she feels right at home inside of restaurant. And I think that was the design intent, and I think it came across really beautifully.
And also in his home is such a stark difference in the aesthetics of both of them.
Yeah,
I was very sad when I realized that the restaurant wasn't a real restaurant in Boston. We live in Boston, so
yeah.
I was like,
how do you think we did? I'm curious how you think we did with our downtown, with our like exterior Boston stuff.
I thought it was somewhere in Back Bay. I thought it was somewhere.
You've seen a lot of those like big fancy apartments before, so
Yeah.
I was
And we had the view of the water and the ships
Yeah.
out the window, which I thought worked really well. We had to avoid seeing the Manhattan skyline, but we were where our apartment was located, you were looking down south of the city, so you were just seeing the marina. And I thought it worked really well because I spent some time in Boston as well, and I loved Boston.
Yeah, no, I seriously thought it was just all shot in Boston somehow.
I mean, you can only assume,
Yeah.
but it makes sense to not film here.
No, I know. I actually know some producers who work in Boston. A lot of stuff gets filmed there. One of our producers on It Ends With Us is a Boston native. So they do a lot of shooting in Boston. I think they could have easily filmed this in Boston. It just happened that New Jersey had the big tax incentive at the time. Oh, and I know Blake also insisted we do it locally. That was a big thing for her because she has kids in school and she didn't want to take it to LA or take it out of town. She wanted to be able to go home to her kids at night, which I totally respect.
Yeah. So what percentage of it was shot in Boston? Any?
Done. Only thing they shot in Boston was some you maybe in the beginning and towards the end of the movie, there's a lot of like drone flyover shots where so that was all actually Boston because we sent a film crew to do some aerial shots. And when she's driving to Maine, they did that outside of Boston. So that was there, but everything else was all Jersey City, Hoboken. I don't know if you've ever been to Hoboken. It's a town, it's a little area just north of Jersey City on the they call it like the sixth borough because it really feels like you're so close to New York City. Really beautiful old brick buildings, like very sweet, like charming cobblestone streets. Like it really felt like Boston to me and so much of Hoboken. I was like, this will work.
Oh, yeah. It did work very well.
It was really impressive.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to identify the buildings when they were shooting on the rooftop and everything.
I want to know the best part. So the rooftop was in Los Angeles.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And they didn't use any CGI for that. We thought we were going to have to, because it was February when we were doing those scenes of her sitting on the roof, it was too cold and too dangerous to do it on a rooftop in New York City because it's like, same as Boston weather here. So we went to Los Angeles in order to have it be safe for the actors to be outside overnight. And we just assumed we were going to have to CGI Boston skyline in wherever we went. There was a time when we almost built that whole roof on a stage and did a fake backdrop for the skyline. That almost happened. But then we found this great building in Los Angeles that had just like that there was something about that view. You could see the water from the top of the roof. It was great. And then there were just like kind of buildings that weren't so LA iconic. Yeah. And there was this one beautiful like old bank that was right across from it. And I was like, well, this is perfect. It's like some beautiful old building. I was like, okay, we got Boston. So we thought we might have to CGI some stuff out, but they did a nice job. They really aimed, look towards the water a lot, and you just get that nice sparkly exterior stuff. I saw something funny where someone was like, they shot it on a stage. You can tell it's a fake backdrop. And I was like, no. We did not. Yeah, they did a lot of work. We built a lot of that stuff on the roof because there was no structures up there. It was just we had to build that railing and build the whole barbecue area and where their loungers are. We made those. So that was a fun portion of the job.
Overall, what do you think was the most memorable moment on set for you?
Oh gosh. I don't know about memorable moment on set. I mean, I remember very vividly standing in Raul's apartment waiting for everyone to show up and then finding out that we were getting shut down because the picketers showed up. So that was we knew it was coming, and it just had to feel like you did so much work. And then I was like, well, we're going to have to do this again at some point because I knew they would finish the movie. We were too far along not to finish it, but just to not know when. But in terms of the actual production, I thought that Lily Bloom's flower shop was magical. And I loved being there and seeing the transformation from the dusty cafe to the flower shop. And the town of Hoboken was so cool. Everyone was just like keep an eye on us and like, what do you got going on? And we had all these like tables on the street with all the decor and all the flowers. Looked like we were having some kind of crazy yard sale all the time. But they were very like really very patient with us. And I know a lot of towns are not nearly as patient. So they were really, really great. I loved being a part of the flower shop. It was a fun set to watch come together.
So
And I
that
think the whole art department felt like that. It was fun for like even the set dressers. Everyone got to have their little like touch or thing on it, you know, like you just you put your little thing and you put your thing in there and it's like, oh, that works. Let's keep it there. It's beautiful. And you feel like you put your touch on it.
I imagine that there's gotta be a lot of like obviously happiness that you accomplished something such as the flower shop. But when you watch the movie back, is there still like that kind of feeling of being a fan of like I was literally at that scene right there behind the camera?
You know, I like to just kind of get lost in the movie when I watch it. And if I'm thinking a lot about like where I was during a lot of those scenes, I don't usually feel that way when I watch it in theater. I try to just like have fun like a fan again. My husband works in film also, and he did work on It Ends With Us, some of it. And he felt the way you said. There was one scene when we were watching it, and he was like, I was right behind that door the whole time they're shooting that scene. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, like
But
doing a studio tour.
yeah. He's like, I was right there. Um, he was like, I was trapped between takes. Like, but yeah, like I still love movies, and I think working on them only increases that because you now when I watch movies that are impressive technically, I'm like, how are they doing it? Like, and then I actually try to think about how the fuck they're doing it.
This is side note, but I did notice that you did work on some like TV series. I was just curious from an art department standpoint, kind of what your take was on TV versus film, what the differences were, and if you enjoyed it or if you just prefer to stay in film.
I prefer film because I think the attention to detail is valued more. But I've been lucky enough that the TV I have done has had that. I worked on a TV show called Dash and Lily as the art director, and the designer of that is a good friend of mine. She's a wonderful woman named Jennifer, and she just it's beautiful. That show is really beautiful. And they did give us the ability to take the time to focus on details that often you don't see that kind of like character development or attention to detail in TV. It's just like it's super fast paced. It's like let's do it, let's get it done, let's get it out. Which is why I think like some of the like more iconic TV shows that are out now that are doing something like really special and different are so awesome to watch. It's like, wow, how are they doing that on what I know is a very tight, they have so little time. And you're like getting scripts as you're shooting something, and you have often two teams that are piggybacking back and forth. I find it exhausting, and it's not my favorite way to work. I know it is like it's nice because it's long, you know, it's a little more job stability just in terms of like a like quality of life thing. It's like, okay, I have a job for 8 months as opposed to I'm just like on a job for like 4 or 5 months jumping around. TV's longer, but yeah, I love movies.
That's great.
Sticking with them.
What piece of advice would you give for someone that wants to be a production designer in film? Like what's something that you'd recommend them to do or to study or to achieve?
I guess depends where they're at in their career. I think if you're in school, I think that taking drafting classes and any sort of architectural background is really, really helpful. I know the little bit of architecture that I did and drafting, 25 years ago when I was in school, I still kind of pull on some stuff like that. And I brush up on drafting stuff, even though I don't draft. There are people who draft who work underneath me. I just like to brush up on those things you know, to learn the stuff I've missed. And I think it's a really good basis because you really get to know how a space works and what how things, just like how a space can feel and what is possible in the ways you can alter a space. Like when I look at a room and I'm location scouting, I'm not actually seeing the room. I'm seeing what my budget and time allows me to do with the room, you know? And that's, you have to think about that on every project, because of course, like what I want to do on an indie is different than what I could do on a big job. So you have to take all of those factors into consideration. So I would say any kind of drafting and architecture, and I think art history is so valuable. I did a lot of art history, and I pull on that kind of like just the knowledge of different time periods and art trends, and um, is really important when it comes to furniture and decor and style, and even the clothes people wear. It affects all the decisions that we make. Colors that were popular at a time, you know, certain pigments didn't exist, did certain time, I don't know, just all that stuff I think is so fascinating, and how it affects the way we look back at it. So yeah, I would say art history, architecture, and graphic design is a big part of the art department too. So I love seeing people who are in the graphics programs who want to take those things and apply them to the film world. Because just like think about the props, like the stuff the actors touch and hold, and you know, we create all of that, and I think all of that helps it come to life, and I think it helps the actors do a better job when they have real beautiful physical things to interact with in a space that feels correct and helps everybody be better.
Thank you so much for that. A lot of the people that listen to us sometimes will come and be like, I'm trying to see what you guys recommend on the podcast to see what we're gonna watch. So what is your favorite movie and why?
Oh, should have an answer for that. God. I'm just gonna say the one I'm thinking of right now, because I just watched it again. I just rewatched Paris, Texas by Wim Wenders. And I love a road trip movie. I like a movie that is doesn't like doesn't have to be about a thing. It's just more a feeling, and it's a good story, and you don't like, you don't need like explosions and you know, action heroes to make a good movie. I just like a good story. I love like Kenneth Lonergan scripts. I love a script that cares for its characters, and the characters are put through challenges and tests, and that can be both sci-fi or fantasy or otherwise. I love a good character and a character-driven story. I don't really like action movies as much. I mean, they're fun sometimes, like, you know, but yeah, Paris, Texas is my pick this week.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So you've been doing a lot of work. What is next for you? Are you working on anything? Is there anything in the horizon?
I just finished a feature a few days ago. Been on it all summer, and it was a fun 1980s period piece, like a high school rom-com that takes place in the 80s. Was really fun to do. And a movie I did called Turn Me On is going to be streaming soon. I think it just went to film festivals, and I want to promote it. I haven't even seen it yet, but I'm excited to see it. And because the film festival it went to was in Spain, and I was working here and I couldn't go, so I haven't seen it. But anyway, I'm excited to see Turn Me On. If you see it on the digital platforms, check it out. And what else do I have coming out? I don't know. That's it. I don't have anything lined up movie wise yet. I just talked to my agent an hour ago. We're working on it.
Well, we'll hope to have you in the future again, with all the great productions you've been working on. Where can people follow you on social media to see what you're up to?
I have an Instagram that I don't use for work as much. It's more personal, but it's Mormon Nailer. My website is anniesimeone.com. I try to keep that updated as much as I can, and my IMDb does a better job than I do, honestly, of what I've been up to. I'm not such a social media person. I don't have Facebook or LinkedIn or any of that stuff. But you can, yeah, You can share my Instagram. You found me on Instagram, right?
Yes.
Share my weird Instagram with anyone you want to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Annie. It was a big pleasure to have you over for the podcast. We're really thankful. And like I said, hopefully we'll be able to have you again in the future, talk more movies, talk more about production design and whatnot. And just thank you so much for being here. There's this one thing that we do to close out episodes, and is that at the end we'll say and cut and just clap like that to finish the episode. And so it will be an honor for us if you could just do that. Say farewell to the listeners right now, and just say goodbye to the episode like that.
And you want me to do the thing?
Yes.
I'll do the slate. I never get to do the slate. That's fine.
You're gonna do this late, and you're gonna say and cut.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. It was really an honor. And I look forward to speaking with you again. And thanks to everyone who's listened. I hope that I made any sense at all. And cut.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Cut. You can follow us on all social media, starting with Instagram as Cut the podcast. You can also follow us on YouTube as That Film Couple, which is the same handle for TikTok, That Film Couple for short form content. You can also follow us on Twitch as Sebasparra1K. And if you're watching right now on YouTube, you can find us on any podcast platform as Cut ! Last but not least, you can follow me on Instagram as sebi.mp4.
And you can follow me at caitlin.mp4.
Thank you so much for being here one more week, and we'll see you in the next one.